Kate, you're not wearing a bustle. How dude?
Come on, Holliday, you in or out, goddammit?
Wyatt Bailey, you look like just about ready to burst.
More than 30 years have passed since Tombstone first arrived in movie theaters, and yet the film shows no signs of losing its power. Many movies from the early 1990s have slowly disappeared from people's memories, but Tombstone is different. It has grown stronger with time. New fans discover it every year. Old fans return to it again and again. People still quote its famous lines at dinner tables, in group chats, and at movie nights with friends. They argue about which scene is the best, which performance is the most unforgettable, and why the film still feels so alive after all these years. What is it about Tombstone that keeps drawing people back? The answer is not simple, and it goes much deeper than most viewers realize. The movie did not become a classic because a big studio poured money into it, or because it had perfect conditions during production. In fact, the opposite is true. Tombstone was a film that faced serious problems from the very beginning, and the version that audiences fell in love with almost did not exist at all. Behind the happy ending that fans see on screen lies a much more complicated story. A story of passion, disappointment, disagreement, and determination. Actor Sam Elliott, who played Virgil Earp in the film, has spoken about some of these challenges over the years. His comments, along with stories from others who worked on the movie, help explain why Tombstone feels so different from other Westerns and why it continues to hold such a strong place in the hearts of so many people around the world. Before Tombstone could become the beloved film that fans know today, it first had to exist as an idea in someone's mind. That person was writer Kevin Jarre, and without him, there would be no Tombstone as we know it. Jarre was not just interested in making another Western action movie. He was genuinely fascinated by history, and he spent a long time studying the real events that took place in the town of Tombstone, Arizona, in the 1880s. He read about Wyatt Earp, the famous lawman who became a legend. He learned about Doc Holliday, the charming and dangerous gambler who suffered from tuberculosis. He dug into the stories of the Earp brothers, the Cowboys gang, and the people who lived and died in that wild, dusty town. When Jarre finally sat down to write a screenplay, he poured all that research into every page. The result was something that Hollywood rarely sees, a script that was far longer and far richer than a typical movie. Most Hollywood screenplays are around 90 to 110 pages. Jarre's script was much longer because he refused to cut corners. Every major character had a full backstory. The Earp brothers were shown as real human beings with family pressures and personal struggles. The villains were not just bad guys with no reason for their behavior. They had motivations and histories that made them feel real. Even smaller characters were given moments that helped audiences understand who they were. When actors like Kurt Russell and Sam Elliott read the script, they immediately understood that this was something special. They were not signing up for a simple shoot-'em-up Western. They were joining a film that wanted to honor real history and tell a story with genuine emotional depth. That belief in Jarre's vision will be tested very soon. Turning a great screenplay into a finished movie is never easy. And with Tombstone, the difficulties came fast and hit hard. From the moment cameras started rolling in the dry Arizona heat, the production faced one challenge after another. The cast was large, the sets were complex, and the schedule was tight. Filming in the desert brought its own set of problems. Extreme temperatures, long travel times between locations, and the physical exhaustion that came with wearing heavy period costumes while performing demanding scenes. Kevin Jarre was directing the film himself, and while nobody ever questioned how much he cared about the project, many people on set began to feel that managing a production of this size was more than he could handle at that point in his career. Directing a major Hollywood film is an enormous job. It means making hundreds of decisions every single day, keeping the crew on schedule, managing the needs of a large cast, dealing with studio demands, and still somehow finding time to focus on the creative vision. When things started falling behind schedule, the pressure grew quickly. Studio executives were watching the budget closely, and delays cost money. Conversations happened behind closed doors. Reports of concern spread to the production. And then came the moment that stunned everyone involved. Kevin Jarre was removed as director. For the cast and crew, this was a painful shock. Many of them had specifically chosen to join the film because of Jarre's script and his passion for the story. Losing him felt like losing the heart of the project. Sam Elliott and others have described how emotional and unsettling that period was. The sets were already built, the cameras were already rolling, and now the person who had created the world of Tombstone was suddenly gone. Everyone was left asking the same question: what happens next? When George Cosmatos was brought in to replace Kevin Jarre as director, the studio hoped that his experience would bring order to production that had started to drift. Cosmatos had worked on big films before and knew how to manage a large set. Under his leadership, filming became more organized, the schedule improved, and the movie began moving forward again. But according to stories that had come out over the years from people who were there, the situation behind the camera was even more interesting than it appeared on the surface. While Cosmatos handled the official duties of directing, another person was quietly playing a major role in shaping the film. That person was Kurt Russell. Russell was already carrying the heavy responsibility of playing Wyatt Earp, the lead character in the story. But beyond his acting duties, multiple people connected to production have said that Russell became deeply involved in the creative decisions being made every day. He reportedly stayed late reviewing scenes, sat in on discussions about the story's direction, worked through problems that came up after Jarre's departure, and helped keep the cast focused and motivated. His goal was not to take credit or gain more power. His goal was simply to make sure the film survived. Russell understood that a movie can fall apart very quickly when leadership changes in the middle of production. Morale drops, confusion spreads, and the original vision gets lost in chaos. He was determined not to let that happen. The people who worked alongside him during that difficult period have said that his dedication made a real difference. Without that steady, passionate presence pushing things forward, it is quite possible that Tombstone would never have reached theaters in a form that made it so beloved. What Russell did during those weeks says a great deal about his character and his commitment to the story he had chosen to help tell. No conversation about Tombstone can go very far without arriving at Val Kilmer and his extraordinary performance as Doc Holliday. For countless fans, Kilmer's portrayal is the single most memorable thing about the entire film. It is a performance they think of first when the movie's name comes up. It is the one they try to imitate, the one they rewatch, and the one they bring up when they argue about the greatest supporting performances in the history of Western movies. What Kilmer did with the character of Doc Holliday was remarkable. He found a way to make Holliday funny, charming, intelligent, sad, frightening, and deeply human all at the same time. In one scene, Holliday could deliver a witty line that made the whole audience laugh. In the very next scene, he could fix someone with a cold stare that sent a chill down the spine. That kind of balance is very difficult to achieve, and Kilmer made it look effortless. But behind the scenes, the work was anything but effortless. Kilmer threw himself completely into the role. He studied the real Doc Holliday in great detail, reading about his life, his personality, and his illness. The real Holliday suffered from tuberculosis, a serious lung disease that slowly weakened him over many years. Kilmer paid close attention to what that illness would have done to a person's body and spirit, and he brought those physical details into every scene he performed. He also developed specific mannerisms, the way Holliday held himself, the way he spoke, the way he used silence to create tension, that made the character feel completely authentic. Every small choice added up to something truly unforgettable, and the result is a performance that film lovers still talk about with genuine admiration decades after the movie was first released. What is perhaps most fascinating about the story of Tombstone is how closely the making of the film mirrors the themes found within the film itself. The characters in Tombstone fight to protect what they believe in, even when the odds are against them. They refuse to give up even when things look hopeless. They stand by each other when it would be easier to walk away. And remarkably, the people who made the movie did exactly the same thing. When Kevin Jarre was removed, it would have been very easy for the cast to lose heart. Some actors in that situation might have quietly done their jobs and moved on, no longer caring deeply about the outcome. But the people involved with Tombstone chose a different path. They kept fighting for the story they believed in. Kurt Russell stepped up when leadership was uncertain. Sam Elliott and the rest of the cast stayed committed to delivering their best work every single day. The crew kept pushing forward even when conditions were difficult. That collective determination, that refusal to give up, is something that viewers can feel when they watch the finished film, even if they cannot explain exactly why. There is an energy in Tombstone that goes beyond good writing and good acting. It is the energy of people who truly cared about what they were making. It is the energy of film that almost did not exist, brought to life by people who refused to let it die. Sam Elliott has spoken about this in interviews over the years, reflecting on what the film meant to the people who made it and why the experience stayed with him long after production ended. His words paint a picture of a project that was built not just on talent, but on genuine love for the story. Decades after its release, Tombstone continues to find new audiences and new admirers. Streaming platforms have introduced the film to younger viewers who were not even born when it first came out. Film schools use it as an example of strong ensemble acting and powerful character writing. Western fans consider it one of the finest entries in the genre. And the stories behind the scenes, the removal of the original director, the quiet leadership of Kurt Russell, the extraordinary dedication of Val Kilmer, and the commitment of actors like Sam Elliott have only added to the film's legend over time. Understanding what the cast and crew went through helps explain why Tombstone feels so different from other movies. It was not made under easy conditions. It was not handed a smooth path from script to screen. It survived because the people involved cared too much to let it fail. Every argument they had, every long day they endured, every difficult decision they made, all of it ended up on screen in some form, whether audiences could see it or not. That passion is what gives a film its special quality. That is what makes lines like, "I'm your Huckleberry," feel like more than just words. That is what makes a gunfight at the OK Corral feel genuinely thrilling even after you have seen it a dozen times. Tombstone is not just a great Western. It is a film that was rescued, rebuilt, and carried to the finish line by people who believed in it when belief was the only thing they had left. And that, perhaps more than anything else, is why it still matters today.